Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for November 17th, 2021. Let's begin, shall we? So how is everyone doing? Welcome back. Thank you for being here. Truly, I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you to my subscribers and to everyone who is a consistent part of this journey together. I really do appreciate you and thank you for being here. And if you're new to this channel, thank you for stopping by. It's so great to have you here. It's a slow but steady, reaching out and making contact with people. So if you find yourself here and you really do value this content after taking some time to listen to it, you can help so much by hitting that subscribe button, to hit the like button, and to share and comment on this content. It really does make a difference when it comes to the algorithm that recommends these videos into people's feeds. I have several clients and people who are consistent viewers and part of this process that have found me as a result of that algorithm. So it actually does make a difference. And I've done some incredible work with these people who have found me randomly on their video platforms, whether it's BitChute or YouTube or Odysee. So thank you for doing that. So welcome to Wednesday. Boy, we always have so much to talk about. How is everyone doing? I'm going to check in with the chat here and the stream and see what's going on and making sure that it's all functioning properly. Let me know if there's anything going on that is not conducive to viewing this material comfortably. So if the sound is off or I can't do much about the video quality of this webcam, at least not yet. But again, that's not what's important. What's important is that you hear me and that we take a journey into this content together, and really everybody is coming at it from their own perspective. So but I am happy about this microphone and what it provides, and also to upgraded equipment is really good because I can stream better and all that other stuff. So welcome everyone. So I'm just curious how people are feeling. We got this Mars opposition to Uranus today, and one of the things that really occurred to me is that this has been building for quite a number of days here, and the transmissions for this week every day has been kind of inching us a little bit closer to what a Mars opposite Uranus normally would represent. So take out of the picture the signs, the degrees that it's in, what everything else is surrounding it. And just a Mars in an opposition to Uranus can really be unsettling in terms of a transit. There is a lot of tension between our really strong ambition to act, maybe even attack. There is a lot of that potential going on. And when you're talking about Uranus, you are talking about very radical, swift reorientation, potentially triggers to massive change, right? You can, Uranus and Mars together, I mean, that is the tower. If I've ever heard of a particular transit that really represents the tower, I feel like Mars and Uranus in opposition to each other could certainly be one of those transits. So it's strong. It's very strong, and it's been building, and now it's exact. And what else it's doing is actually bringing us back around to the new moon that we this lunar started with, which was the new moon in Scorpio between 12 and 13 degrees of Scorpio, and this is where we're finding Mars today. This is where Uranus has been sitting in opposition to this point now for a while, because Uranus moves very slowly in its orbit around our star, our sun. It's roughly about 84 years, the full revolution of Uranus around the sun. So it moves very slowly. We have Saturn today. Oh boy, the ticking time clock of Saturn has moved a degree. So if you think of the zodiac or the zodiacal wheel, the astrological calendar, as a clock, which we do here, we talk about it all the time, as astrology is a fourth density and fourth dimensional modality, right? We're able to move through time in our present incarnation. And in fact, I mean, if you look at a chart, it's very second density, 2 dimensions, right? When it's flat on a screen and then moving through time, that's even more, I think that's even more substantial in terms of what astrology can really provide. But it, if you look at the clock as a representation of the zodiac, every time Saturn moves a degree, it's like that minute hand clicking over and coming into a new moment. And that's what's happened between yesterday and today. Saturn has moved into the next degree of Aquarius. And we're going to start feeling some movement and some impetus to start moving. And with Mars in an opposition to Uranus as well, and Saturn being part of the picture in Aquarius, right? Very close. I mean, you could even say that Saturn is in a T-square. So when we look at the chart, I will point that out and what that really means. But we're really starting to feel a need to act on a vision, right? The seer becomes the doer, and it's time to, or we certainly are going to feel the timeliness of this. And with Mars in the picture, coming back around to activate the new moon, which really has us investigating very deeply. I think that we're going to start getting a fire lit under us. And a very powerful fire. And as we look at today's reading, we'll see that that fire is absolutely raging under the surface. And I would recommend, based on my own journey, my own personal journey, and how information has been coming through to me, that you really do take the time to make sure that you know what it is you're investigating, how much of your energy you're going to put into this investigation, right? One of the things I just said as I posted the link to this video into social media is that, we really have to be clear with ourselves how far we can tumble down this rabbit hole before we can't make our way back out. There's no room for baggage, extra baggage on this train to the evolution of our higher consciousness, right? There's no room. We have to be very clear about what we're taking with us. And the deeper we go down the rabbit hole, as much as we investigate and come into truth and a clear feeling of what that truth is, maybe not so much a clear vision, but a depth of feeling, we have to understand that that depth of feeling and the intensity of it is where the seed of our creation really lies. And so when we talk about evolution of our consciousness, we're talking about the awakening process, the ascension process, however you want to, understand it for yourself, that we're all going through together. We have to be very clear with ourselves that what we're really gathering in terms of the seed of our creationary power, which is in the sacral chakra, which is in the subconscious, which is in the Scorpio realm, the power of our communion and our faith is really in that 8th house in Scorpio realm. So we have to be very clear about what it is, what dots we're connecting, and are we prepared to take with us what it is that we see as the big picture? And again, it's going to be in our feeling. And it's the feeling, it's the emotion, it's the depth of that feeling, and the power of our communion together is really what creates. And we got to make sure that we are not taking too much with us, and that we are very clear with ourselves what it is we are taking through this Stargate. Because this portal from 1111 is very powerful, and there's so many time overlaps that seem to be like so many. There's multiple ones. We have the Atlantis time wave that's coming back through. It's like a fold, right? They call it, a wrinkle in time, but it's a folding over in some ways. So when we look at the we'll look at the intuitive part of the transmission, and we'll see what is giving us some guidance, because winter is coming. And I said this yesterday, and this has been made clear in other people's perspectives as well, which really does kind of put a damper on really trying to act on some things. And I'm not suggesting that we should not act. In fact, we're going to see that our action can be directed in a very specific direction. But it's not until the end of eclipse season that things, towards the end, right, the equinox and beyond, that we're really going to start seeing some serious development. And when we come back to the other end of this eclipse season, which will be in May, right, it'll be in May at the full moon lunar eclipse. It'll be the other side of this tunnel, essentially. It'll be the other side of it, and then we will have a lot clearer, at least a lot clearer vision in terms of what is being distorted now and what areas of our life this eclipse is happening. We'll have a lot clearer vision. It'll be illuminated. We will really find our voice through that by the end of this eclipse cycle, and I'll be recording that report today. So we have some time to work with, although Saturn is kind of ticking off the next moment, and so it's like we have time, but we don't have time, and there is no time when we move into the higher realms, especially moving into the Aquarian and Pisces realm. There is no time, is there? Or the time is an illusion in this density. So the way that we conceptualize it as a linear process is illusionary. It's not how it actually functions. So time it's of the essence, and we feel the clock ticking, the sands through the hourglass, and that may, in fact, that T-square is going to be what actually helps anchor in some of this otherwise very attacking and erratic energy with Mars and Uranus in opposition to each other, right? We want to get to the root of something. We really want to put these dots together, and we want to be able to show it to other people. And there are things coming to the surface, and that is part of this opposition, right? The attacking, the very direct and very fiery action when it comes to getting into the laboratory of our own soul, our own subconscious, and of course in the relationships with each other, however that expresses itself. It's not to say that there won't be some benefit to this type of transit. It's often very very difficult. It's a rough one, right? And it's been rough. But again, we have Saturn to kind of, in that T-square, to kind of anchor it and to release the tension and give a grounding rod for something that otherwise would be like that tower moment. And so that is going to really, I think, assist us in this process. Then we have Mercury that's going to come into that trine with Neptune tomorrow, and also on the day of the full moon, the day of the full moon, the eclipse, Venus is going to be in a trine to Uranus as well. And this is very connected to how this eclipse cycle is going to unfold, where Venus and where Uranus are, because she is really charging ahead, right? Venus is is scouting in some ways, or at least giving us the impressions in our own material reality, in our own senses, right? We may not fully have an awareness yet, but she is laying the groundwork and really going out ahead in front of everything else. Now that's not going to stay, because she's going to go retrograde in Capricorn, and everything's going to catch up to her. But in the meantime, we have this incredible feminine and very responsible, very patient and wise energy in moving through Capricorn, that's setting the tone for how the Sun and Mercury and Mars, when they all move into Capricorn, also going to be in a trine with Uranus, okay, during this eclipse season. So what's happening in the next day and 2 days and 3 days leading up to the eclipse is going to set a tone, right? And it has been set, right? Where Mercury is going to be. The Sun has already made this connection, and it had a lot to do with people obeying their own conscience, right? Stepping out and disobeying the orders from an authoritarian society. These are powerful very powerful connections. So I think that we really do need to take a moment here to acknowledge the power of nature and the power of natural cycles and the organic timeline that we have the capacity to connect with, because we can force things all day through our own will, right? Because that's what Mars really does. But at the end of the day, it is our alignment with the natural rhythm and attunement to something more even than what we see right in front of us that is going to really allow us to successfully move through this time. So no matter how you shake it up, it's going to be a Mars in opposition to Uranus can be very disruptive and a lot of attacks. Now, that may be something that you don't experience in your life directly, and it's something that you're seeing out in the world. That is a possibility, but it's still important to know that no matter what, it's going to have an impact on you individually as a spiritual being, as an energetic being. It's still going to impact you, and that goes both ways. How we respond to things, the choices that we make, every single choice point influences the matrix that is unfolding and the destruction of it as well. So lots of different things to connect, and I think it's we might as well just get right into the intuitive aspect of this transmission and get ourselves grounded. So excuse me, I have something in my eye. It's probably an eyelash. So I want everybody to take a moment here and really kind of feel your feet on the ground, or if you're sitting, really feel your root chakra and the energy moving down through your legs, through your feet, and into the earth itself, and really put your attention on that earth star chakra that is below the surface of the earth, that is connecting to the earth grid, the planetary grid, that connects you not only to the energetic system, but all of the history, all of the ancient history of this planet. Ooh, I'm getting some tingles right now just talking about it. So take some time to really get yourself in that place. And then as we take our breath in, this deep diaphragmatic breath, we can draw in the template of the planetary grid into our own self and allow that to be the grid system that then we can invite in a higher frequency of energy within ourselves. So if we're already here, we're going to take a deep breath in. And release. Excellent. Ooh, that was good. All right, guys. Now that we're ready to receive, let's take a look here into, if I can get the mouse to work here. There we go. So I'm going to be moving this portion of it up into the corner, shall we? And we will start going into this transmission. I don't mean to be, if you have plans and you're trying to act on things and get things going, Mars, especially with this new moon, what intentions we set to really get to the root of things, get to the bottom of things, either in our own life, in our own subconscious, in our own relationships, all of these things. Mars really is acting on this now and really driving us to get there. And it's not to say that there isn't something to be utilized in this situation, but we have to, again, be mindful about how far we're going to tumble down this rabbit hole before we can't come back out. Or we have so much density, and so much despair, right? And this is going to be a real struggle for people that haven't really, because people are still in their awakening process. It's not going to necessarily stop. Everybody's kind of in their own place about it, but it can be very destructive to our sense of safety, security, and when our feels are fully engaged, it can be very difficult to come into awareness about the darkness that is residing under our awareness and be able to come back up to the surface. So, but although what we're looking at is actually fairly favorable if we stay in alignment with and vigilant, right? Stay vigilant. We talked about the messages coming through just in general, and now it's making its way into this collective transmission. It's really important that we stay vigilant, that we're asking for guidance, that we are open to it, and maybe we're a little bit behind the scenes on some things here, as we're going to see, but that doesn't mean we aren't doing things. It just means that maybe we are in alignment with a natural process that is going to guide us through this growth process or this awakening process, or just be in alignment with something that is very disruptive. So I have a feeling in the next day or so we're going to have some conversations around the seismic activity, the Schumann resonance, all of that stuff. It's pretty quiet right now. I have a feeling in the next day or so it's not going to be quiet. And you can already feel the rumblings in a lot of ways. Yesterday, I literally felt the earth move under my feet when I was at the grocery store. And sometimes that happens. It's happened in many situations. I'm curious if anybody else has that, where they have that sense of vertigo for no reason other than just being somewhere, and then you're like, wow, I felt that. I felt that shift under my feet. So I'm just checking with the chat real quick before we move on. Emily says there's more premonitions or messages last night in the dream state for others from the past. Oh yeah, I've been having lots of past life reconnection, not past life, past history reconnection. And I think I might have talked about this already, and being going back into old wounds, old patterns, and the ways that I've, this concept of Juno, and I'll get back to the reading in just a minute because this is important. The concept of Juno being a closed system, and the Juno, asteroid Juno, right? The goddess of the scales, right? Representing the balance in our relationships and in our contractual relationships and commitments, and how it's a closed system, and we must adjust ourselves in order to find balance in our relationships. And sometimes when we are not acting of the highest, we can act out. And Black Moon Lilith actually is in a position today to really, again, there's a lot of ambition here that we have to be aware of. And with Mars in Scorpio like this, opposite Uranus, I mean, we really could find ourselves kind of working against ourselves if we're not careful. But dream state is really active these days, and I found myself going into past situations where I acted in a manner that was where I betrayed other people's trust or acted out of alignment with my integrity as a result of my own trauma and my own abuse, and just maybe being young and naive, or just not in alignment with my higher self, and having an opportunity to go back into those situations and actually make amends, or acknowledge it and heal it, and offer our attention and our awareness. So this is important because I feel like this is actually a lot of the work that we could really be doing right now. And I know that it gets old, like how much shadow work do we have to do? And but really, truly, the obsession, because that's Mars and Scorpio, there can be a strong obsession, right, with Mars and Scorpio, and to get to something, to merge with something, to get to the root of something, to act on this obsession. We can be very obsessed with the darkness and what's going on under the surface, and that can work against us too, because we have to be willing to at least apply that to something where we could have some measure of choice and control over. And I think it's when we become obsessed with it, when it has nothing to do with us directly, is where we start having a negative impact on the collective, geometrical field that we are trying to bring into form with new Earth, right? New Earth. So things are coming through, and I really encourage people to stay connected as much as you can to that state. If you find yourself waking up at 3, 4, 5 a.m. and you usually don't, if you're in a position where you can get up, I would recommend it, or at least be journaling, dream journaling, taking any kind of notes that you can, because that's the time frame that your brain is really accessing this raw data, and is usually around that time. And so you get a lot of information, and sometimes messages come through other people because we are too close to something to see it clearly, right? And I experienced that this week. You know, it usually comes in threes, and by the time you get the third message from somebody outside of you that's like, hey, you should or shouldn't, you know, pay attention to this, it's a good thing to pay attention to. So sometimes when it comes through other people, it's even more important because you are too close to look at it. And again, Scorpio, it's the feels are involved. It's not Aquarius where we're detached. That's where Saturn is. Saturn's really going to actually, strangely enough, is really going to assist in this process with this T-square. Okay, now we'll get back to the reading now that I've done blabbing about these things. Okay, so we are finding ourselves here, our causal factor. This is very lovely, isn't it? Our Princess of Wands. We've seen her a bunch lately, haven't we? This very beautiful Venusian, feminine in the fire signs, right? She's playful. She's dancing in the flames. She is in total confidence and courage and enthusiasm with herself. She is riding the wave of the flame. And we do know that Vesta, asteroid Vesta, the flame itself, is now in Sagittarius, and this really speaks to meaning. Sagittarius is about the meaning that we hold, or is held for us in our collective communal situation. So Vesta is now in conjunction with the first degree of Sagittarius, which means she's also in conjunction with Alpha Centauri, and we've talked about a lot of Alpha Centauri yesterday because this is in fact our closest stellar neighbor. Alpha Centauri is a cause, right? That we connect to a cause, and Alpha Centauri starseeds are very committed to their cause and providing something, and the meaning behind it is what really stimulates the acting on this cause and to give of themselves. It's very self-sacrificing, and there's something that is part of that as well with Sagittarius to a degree, right? You don't really get to the full martyrdom and sacrifice till you get to Pisces, which is in fact square to Sagittarius, but it's still meaning. So with the Princess of Wands, Venus in the fire signs, you know, it's insatiable hunger for life and courage and beauty and enthusiasm. And, you know, Venus just, she was already in Sagittarius, and now she is in Capricorn. So we can also look at this as a past many weeks past, you know, something that is now relating to this moment, but is something that has been here coming into this moment. And so there, I feel like there is some playfulness here, and a sense of just kind of, it's not reckless abandon at all. It's just joyful and enthusiastic about what is and what's coming. And Venus, you know, represents all of the earth in these cards. The princess is the earth. So the earth of air, which very, very much is connected to where Venus will be in a trine, an Earth trine to Uranus tomorrow. And I'll go into that with the astrology. So we've been here before, and we're coming back again, and there's this sense of enthusiasm and joy for life, right? And it's very insatiable. Venus, Princess of Wands, is very lustful and full of anima, and just burns down the object of her desire and moves on just as quickly, right? Because there's no suppressing the flame within us. And when it is earth, it's something that is very connected to us in the material. It's connected to our own desire, right? And it's just this beautiful, and look, she's got a wand with a sunflower. There's a pedestal with a flame. I mean, I don't know if this isn't Vesta, I don't know what is. And then you have this Lyran aspect because you have this large cat, this large predatory feline, which is one of the more prominent Lyran ways that the form that they take. That's what I'm trying to say. The Lyrans take a lot of different forms. They are old. The Lyrans are old. They are like the originators in some ways. And they provide the blueprint for all the humanoid life because they've just been here since the beginning. So the Lyrans, but they seem to come most directly in this feline form, sometimes in an avian form, but this feline form is really strong with the Lyrans. And so there's, wrapped up in this whole card is this sense of, I mean, there's so much confidence here and enthusiasm and a really strong connection to how we feel in our senses, right? And again, getting connected to the natural world too. And fire is part of the natural world. Fire is an element, right? Is part of the elemental frequency of this planet and in this domain. So I feel like there is this joy and enthusiasm that is now coming into the moment, and then we find ourselves with a new love, whatever this is. Here's our Ace of Cups. Such a good card, and this is really at the heart. So there's kind of like this bursting forward now, or bursting open in our heart space, and this shows the way deep into our soul, right? And there's a desire for union, there's a desire for friendship, there's a desire for love and relationship. Now, something to consider with the ace is that it's everything. It's the seed point of this element, which is the cups, the water, the spirit, the feeling. Beauty and ugly are one and the same, aren't they? Right? You need both in order to have, either one, right? So without shadow, there is no light, right? How do we know what light is without the absence of it? And this is a fundamental aspect of living in this dimension, right? We can still function in a higher density. These things are different, but we still live in this, three dimensions in a physical material form. So the dichotomy, the polarity, it's all part of how we create in this particular domain. And so we have to acknowledge that in every aspect of life. So without, ugly, there is no beauty, and vice versa. And this really does show our emotional capacity at its most pure, right? It's most pure, and at the very beginning, right? The ace, the number one. So you can see that there is this radiation off of it. You can see that it's a toroidal field, right? Right at the heart of us, which really, in an energetic perspective here, or energetic stance, is our toroidal field blasts open from our heart space, coming in from above, coming up from below, meeting at the heart, and this is where our field really radiates from. And of course, from a more practical or material perspective, that's exactly what's happening, because our heart is an electrical pump, and anything electrical is going to emit a magnetic field. So it's the same principle energetically, materially. It doesn't matter. Spiritually, it's all the same at this point, and it always has been. It's just a matter of us coming to realize this. So at the heart, something very new, and a very new desire to love and to be ready to receive it. And bursting forward, right? Our heart space emitting this really strong field as and what's coming before it is this very strong enthusiasm and this willingness to just let it, to just dance in the flame of transformation, right? Of creativity. That's what fire represents, our spiritual nature and our spiritual flame at the center of our soul. And now that Vesta has moved into a fire sign, which is Sagittarius, the meaning of all of this is so much stronger. And we are now ready to we're open now. We're really open for love in a new way, very strongly, okay? Which makes us very, makes us open, right? It makes us vulnerable. That's part of being open to love, is vulnerability. Very much part of the Cancerian element, right? The true vulnerability comes from some sort of protection, some sort of mechanism that holds us. The Holy Grail, the womb, right? The mother, the maternal aspect, the family, the land itself. All of these things allow us to deepen our connection to ourselves and to be vulnerable to love, because we're being held by something that encapsulates us, and it's the lattice structure of our relationships and our families and those that we love that really holds us, and then we can deepen our own channel, our own cord to the center of who we are. Wow, this is really incredible when we think about it. So here is, this is very fun, because here we are. This was the star card yesterday, right? This is the outcome. And I do feel like that the Mars Uranus opposition, if you remember how we had that Prince of Swords that was reversed yesterday, that went along with the outcome, I do feel like there is a lot of crossed wires, that there's a lot of erratic signaling, and this is really important to get a handle on based on where Mars is today. And we'll talk a lot about Mars, because as you see, we have the Magi, the Magus, or the Magus, or the Magician as our outcome. So we really do want to look at Mars, and it's in a very favorable position to be transmitting, okay? But we also have to be very clear with what it is. Again, we are transmitting, and we are not inadvertently transmitting or, reverberating something deep inside of us that has been placed there, that has been unresolved, or is as a result of our desperation almost in some cases, or just this really strong urge to get to the root of something, and we don't not resolving it, or just sitting in it. And I don't really feel that that's the case for many of us here, but we'll find that for those who have not really taken a conscious trajectory on this path, it will be more difficult. So when we look at the lookout, it's the same number 17. So we have now this kind of this energy, this Aquarian energy, this lookout energy, the guiding light, the optimism, to be totally in coherence with nature, right? Now at the root of us energetically, where we can draw our power from, where we find our stability, where our what is going on in our subconscious, and that root chakra as well. What is really anchoring us right now energetically? It's the lookout, right? And so now it's moved into our energetic awareness. And so this is a pretty obvious card. You see that the ship is on fire, and the person in his purple shirt up here with his binoculars is in the crow's nest, looking out for the next step, knowing for the most part that this is happening, right? We know that there's a dumpster fire happening with underneath us, and that we are, that the Pluto is doing Pluto's job, and the flames of it are really active in this process. And in some ways, here's our princess again, dancing in the flame, just being like, yeah, I know this is happening. And in fact, this is how we rise from the ashes. And so you can see how there can be this collective, or a sense of just being this really not naive in some ways, but just playful and courageous to just be like, you know what? Off we go. You know what I mean? Fire purifies, and I'm going to dance in that flame, knowing that the meaning of all of this is actually in the burning down before rising from the ashes. But where we can really anchor and stabilize ourselves energetically right now is in this process, like looking out towards what is the next. Where is our next step? Like, where are we going towards as this is all burning down? And it is for surely burning down, challenging situations, right? Here's again, our tower moment is happening. And we might find ourselves, again, sudden fall, sudden loss, sudden separation, right? Because we have to go to a safer environment, so to speak. But it comes from having this really calm and detached, right? There's that Aquarian nature. And this is going to be, again, Saturn coming into the picture and being in that T-square with Mars and Uranus right now. Because Mars is just like, no, I want to understand where this dumpster fire came from. I want to get down to the root of it. I want to do the arson investigation, right? And figure out what's going on. And Uranus is like, let's get the hell out of here, right? We can't take that with us. It's already burning. Let's go. And it's going to be Saturn and the hand of time, right? Clicking along, that's going to be like, all right, we have to actually be grounded into, and Saturn in Aquarius, right? We have to actually be able to connect to something in time, something that is timeless while in time and space. right? And so this is us in this crow's nest in some ways. We can really gather our power from here because this individual knows what's happening, and they're looking out at where the next step is, right? And being ready to go there, right? Saturn is going to be in this degree of Aquarius for weeks, so we have time in order to really see and to act on the vision, right? And that's the thing about the person in the crow's nest, man. Their vision is like phew, all the way out. And so if we're going to act on the vision, that's a tall order if we have a vision that is like way far out. So that's something to keep in mind too. But this is where we can really draw our power and stabilize ourselves, is in this lookout or the star card, right? The guiding light and the optimism and trust in nature and what's happening. So here's where our conscious attention is and where we're releasing our power, what's going on out there, what we see, what we're acting on. So the Four of Keys, clearing the way. So this is also pretty self-explanatory in terms of the imagery here. Four of Keys. So it's time to take action to remove an obstruction. So here is where the action can really be focused. It's important that we temper this action with some calm and some forethought, because if we're too urgent, Mars, we can waste our energy. And if we're not able to be action oriented enough, we may not have the capacity to really do what needs to be done, right? If we're kind of second guessing, or we're not really putting our full energy into clearing away the obstacle. Again, temperance is about balance. We have to balance our energy and not necessarily, like I said, we don't want to waste it and let it all go, because that's such a potential with Mars, especially Mars in Scorpio. We have to be determined, we have to be strong, and we have to be very strategic about how we utilize our energy to clear the way. Now notice there's two people here. There's a man and a woman, right? And so we need both of these aspects on board within us in order to really get this done. And he has the tools that he needs, right? And you can see that they're almost there. They're almost home. It's very well lit. It's just a matter of doing the thing. And so our attention is really focused on clearing the obstacle out of the way to get home, right? While where we are really rooted and we can draw a lot of our power right now, in general, is a much broader vision, much broader, much more further out, and also at the same time being very aware of what is burning away underneath us. This is much more about, okay, so this is the thing I can do right in front of me right now, which is clear the obstacles out of the way in a very material way, so that I am able to get where I'm going. And with Uranus, this is about being able to commune or merge with the collective third eye and gnosis, right? To open up that laser point focus into the 0 point. So where this takes us, though, is pretty awesome, I think, in terms of an outcome, is our magus or magician, right? Number 1. So we have also the Ace of Cups has the number 1 at top. And then here is number 1. So the magus, or us as magi, or magician. So this is Mercury in its most clear and pure form. So you can see that Mercury is like riding on these light beams. Also completely nude, has everything kind of at the disposal of Mercury. You can see that there's kind of like the snake is wrapped up and around. It's almost like a caduceus, almost, not quite, but there is this bird and the sense of like a wings. And so there's pure conscious manifestation as Mercury represents it. Okay, so consciousness, action, creation, the idea of manifestation, right? It suggests that we have emotional and creative powers, but they have to have a physical basis. Like it's one thing to, to think about this stuff all the time. It's another to put it into form, which is really the work of Mercury in Virgo, by the way. So it's, Mercury has two roles because, in fact, it does express and stand for this, this non-binary, which means it is forever binary at the same time. And so Mercury rules Gemini, Mercury rules Virgo, and Virgo is putting it into practice, right? Putting it into an actual practice. And so, but this is both of those things. The Magi does both of those things. It's when we get trapped in just the knowledge part that we find ourselves having some problems. And we have to humble ourselves. We have to put it to service. And that is what the Virgo aspect of Mercury really represents. So this also represents self-realization, the ability to manifest and have our way. So we do have to clear the way. We do. We have to clear the way and clear the way very materially for this new seed of love and devotion and friendship that is at our heart right now. We are so ready for a new relationship of some kind. And we will then become aware of our ability to pretty much create whatever we want as a result of all of these factors coming together. This is very favorable, right? The Magus, the ability to manifest, right? And it comes from, where does it come from? Well, the High Priestess is inseparable from the Magus or the Magician, right? So we need a space, and the High Priestess is the Moon, and the Moon is at home in Cancer, and Cancer is the Cup, right? And so we need to have a space that's cleared away. That will allow us to create. And so we'll deal with that because we're getting so close to a lunar eclipse that is going to be a little troublesome, I think, for us. But if we are aware of that, then it'll be okay. One second. Okay, I didn't want to cough in your face. So even though it's on a microphone, it's still... Okay, so there's some guidance points here to work with, of course, is... Now, when we talked about the lookout and the Five of Forces, these two, at first, are going to seem paradoxical. The Five of Forces, summer. This is like full-on yang or yang activity, right? The height of summer is when everything is growing very vigorously, right? All the vegetative growth, the flowers are blooming, all of the growth is very strong and it's very active, right? When we talk about the Five of Forces, the summer in particular. So what is interesting about this with the chameleon, which is saying stay in the background and adapt to the situation rather than being conspicuous and attempting to direct the course of events, right? At first, it seemed paradoxical, but then I realized when you are at the position of the lookout, for instance, let's go back to that real quick, you're not directing any course of events that has to do with this, right? This is burning down, whether you like it or not. There's nothing that this person in the crow's nest is going to do to change that with themselves, right? Unless there's some, like Gandalf or something. But let's just work, we also accept that this is part of how we move into the next phase. And, regardless if it's the Great Awakening or the Great Reset, we all know that the demolition is part of the process, no matter how you swing it, because that's where Pluto is in Capricorn. So we know that it's, essentially mulching everything that we relied upon in terms of a matrix of reality. But there's no directing the course of events here. This is an individual that really is going to just blend in and move in accordance with the natural flow of things when it's time to do so. And I think that there's something to be said for that, especially too when you think of the Five of Forces and the natural action, right? What's directing the course of events in nature? That's something that we really should spend some time asking ourselves and really reflecting on, because they, these plants, for instance, let's just take that as an example, they're not directing the course of events. They are responding to the environment that's triggering these biochemical changes in their structure that allow them to grow, allow the flowers to bloom and to blossom, which then allows pollination, right? There's a whole ecosystem that's going on, but they're not the ones directing it. The plants necessarily are responding to the environmental triggers and factors that are awakening these things. So when we talk about taking action, and get going and taking steps towards our goal, or away from the dumpster fire, it does imply some sort of movement. And then you have the chameleon, which implies that you're blending in. But I would say that what we're really as a whole, when you put all of these pieces of the narrative together, what we're seeing here is that we can still make moves without being conspicuous. We can still act when it seems like we're not the ones directing the action. And this is not about being complacent or apathetic or not taking the initiative to do anything. What we're doing is taking the initiative to create the space in order for the new thing to grow, the new earth to grow within us. And once that happens, then we will start manifesting it outside of us, which is happening. But we still have to accept and align with, to a certain extent, and be this Princess of Wands and dance in the flame of it, and honor that process, and realize that if we can transcend even that most basic kind of life-death dichotomy that is shown in the course of a fire burning, right? Then we will be doing something, right? And we're not directing the course of events. We're in alignment with what's happening. And being in alignment with what's happening will give us vision so far out that we will be able to see, oh, it's not going to be until the spring that things are really going to start moving again. And right now is the time to really map out, or at least sharpen our vision of where we're going next, so that we are ready to act when it's time. And so the action that we can take is more about being, like I said, in alignment with all of the natural processes that are triggering our own growth, okay? There's something important about staying in the background and not being conspicuous that really wants to be heard, because the dumpster fire is where our attention is constantly being drawn to. Here, pay attention to this, right? And this is where Mars wants to understand how that dumpster fire started, and is going to be very aggressive about going into that space and reactivating what we set intentions for in the first place with the new moon. But with the eclipse, we're not gonna get a full reflection back on what needs to go, right? Or what needs to be released. And so we have to go deeper and accept that that's the case, and that a cycle that is much longer is going to be initiated. And this is why the vision, being able to see out, is so important. People that have ADHD were the people that you'd put in the crow's nest, right? Because without anything else to do, they are going to be scanning the horizon in a way that nobody else ever could. Because people with ADHD don't actually have they don't have attention deficit if they're paying attention to something that actually stimulates them appropriately. It's trying to put those people in environments where they don't give a shit about, or nothing holds their attention. Then of course their mind is going to find something to focus on that they'd rather focus on. So, but there's staying inconspicuous, right? Kind of blending in, because then we don't get pulled in to all of the drama, and we can actually just, almost blend in. If you look at the Princess of Wands, she's almost blended in with the flame itself. And so there's something to be said for that too. Now, the walrus, remain vigilant about the current situation. What is the current situation? That we're clearing the obstacles out of the way of our material life, what's directly in front of us. There are obstacles. Maybe this is past healing, karmic healing, past life healing, ancestral healing. Maybe there are relationships that need to be moved out of the way. Maybe there are things that need to be, other types of situations that have been really holding us back that need to be moved out of the way. ask for guidance. And when you ask for it, be open to the different types of guidance that are going to come in, and be vigilant, right? This is about, again, you have to be vigilant to clear the way. You can't just go out there and chop a couple times and be like, I'm tired, I don't want to do it, right? You have to actually like put your energy into it, and that's what the vigilance is about. And when let them dictate your choices. No, not saying you should give your power away, but when you get 3 messages in a row from 3 different people, all that don't even know each other, all's telling you the same thing about a specific thing that you tried to do, you listen, right? Listen, because if you don't, then that's going to be a choice that you make, and will have an impact on the future, okay? Because what we are doing here, again, clearing the way is about making space for something new to grow, right? This is about a force of creativity and expansion, and it's about focusing on starting new things or expanding, which at the heart of us is about love and relationship and being a vessel for love and relationship and compassion. We're feeling that very strongly at the heart of us right now. That nest has to be built first. That means the obstacles have to be removed if they aren't already. So again, we're creating a space. We're creating a space for this expansion. But we also have to accept that right now the burning down is very much part of what's going on right in front of us, or right under us, right? And we can't get so hyper fixated on what that is that we don't pay attention to, because that is a real potent strategy, is it not? To have us stay focused on the dumpster fire right under us and not have any vision of where we're going, and to give our some of ourselves that vision, and focus on it. And ultimately, if we take heed of all of this, we find ourselves stepping into our mercurial power of manifestation. So let's look at the astrology so that we can see what's actually guiding us towards all of these things right now. So I'm going to move this over here. All right. And we're going to go into the window. Yes. Okay, guys. All righty. I hope everyone is doing well right now. And it seems like a lull type of day, and I got that sense that it may not be something, that people are going to be like, oh, whatever, even though there are exciting things happening, but it's the opposition with Uranus and Mars that's been building for a couple days now. So it may have already peaked for you. It may we still have a couple days after that. It'll be, at least another day or two where this opposition and the T-square to Saturn will be very strong. So if it's not necessarily popping off right in front of you now, just give it some time. Just give it some time. That's what I would recommend, at least. So, all right, let's look at the notes for today as well. All right. So there's something very important about being able to peacefully adapt to the natural setting. And this is something about getting into those last 5 degrees of Scorpio where the sun is, right? The sun is where we're finding our voice. And there's something here about when you get to this point that you start to realize how important it is to be able to efficiently adapt to a very rapid changing environment. Oh, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? So it's the ability to adjust swiftly to a new situation by tuning into its requirements, okay? We need to tune into its requirements. So this is where the sun is today in Scorpio. And so our moon is now in Taurus, as we see. And so let's go back in the Wayback Machine and let's start looking at these moon transits. We talked at length about the Mars opposition to Uranus. We see here that Saturn is now in the 8 to 9 degree of Aquarius, creating that T-square. These are all fixed energies, right? Fixed water of Scorpio, fixed earth of Taurus, and fixed air of Saturn. So they're all really staunchly in their positions, which makes this square or this opposition with Uranus and Mars even more destructive and more like unbudging in some ways, right? So having Saturn here in this position to release this tension or to give it a grounding rod in order to really start acting out what we're seeing. Like I said, this is the minute hand, right? Just slowly clicking to the next minute. So we know that the second hand is moving, right? All of the aspects of the clock of the universe is moving, and every cog is spinning in its own way, just like we are spinning around the earth, and the earth is spinning around its axis, and the moon is spinning around the earth. And so all of these different cycles are coinciding at the same time. But Saturn is kind of like the final word about the boundary of time and space. And now we've had a lot of time to focus and to really find the scaffolding and the skeletal structure of that which we are moving into, right? The exemplars that represented forms that we could be inspired by. Now we're starting to see that we're going to start acting it out. And it's in time to start acting it out. And so we have some time. We do have some time here, right? Saturn is going to be in this degree for a while, but in this T-square is the moment where we feel how important it is that our vision is aligned with nature, and our vision is aligned with where we're going, and the highest version of where we're going, the new earth, the organic timeline. Those types of things have to be at the front of our awareness, I think, and this will help ease the tension, or certainly, like I said, a grounding rod for what otherwise is a very powerful and very potentially destructive and very attacking type of transit. So we don't need to go over that again. So as we go through this. But the moon is the thing that is interesting about this, is that the moon is with Uranus. So when we talk about where our emotional state really is and how we feel, our emotional landscape and our intuition, and really how we navigate and adapt to the world emotionally, we are with Uranus, right? Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury, right? So we have the Magi as Mercury, but Uranus is the higher octave of it, right? It is the third eye opened. It is the knowing of all based on transcending time and space, right? The Aquarian nature is to innovate and to move outside of what already is materially formed in order to change and to grow and to evolve. So the moon, exalted in Taurus, right? Familiar, powerful territory, not its rulership, but very close to it, is with Uranus. So the emotional state and where we find ourselves really adapting to the world around us is very much linked up with Uranus. And so in some ways, it's like our emotional state will be much more impacted and aligned with Uranus, which is always moving and shifting and changing, and there's never stability with Uranus because it's always kind of this vibration happening much higher. Let me know if that happened. Okay, it said that it disconnected, so I'm hoping that the stream is still going. Let me know, please, if it dropped off or not. I would really appreciate that. I want to make sure that it hasn't gone away. Yeah, it seems like it froze. So, but I'm sure it's coming back. So, and it's at least recording. So at the very least, the recording is still good to go. It's like that moment where everything starts shaking loose, and because of the vibration and how intense the situation is. This is where we're at emotionally. We're really connecting to that aspect. So in some ways, it's also very we can't get away emotionally from the the disruption of Uranus and what that represents. So, oh boy, there we go. Yeah, I see that we're back now. So the moon is really connecting to what it is. There's a sense of wanting to be comfortable, but in that moment it's like, there is no real comfort necessarily other than letting go of all of the baggage. I think that's the only way, right? It's just letting it go and realizing that is truly the only emotional stability that we would find. And the moon is very powerful and comfortable in Taurus. It wants our emotional vulnerability wants to be embedded or certainly contained by something. And so in Taurus, it's contained by the very objective reality rather than our relationships where it's the most powerful. So it's still powerful and it's still nestled into something, but with Uranus involved in the equation, the nestling into it is taking us to the next octave, right, of what that means. And so perhaps it's much more energetic that we are finding that that emotional security within, like being able to literally connect to the grid of the planet, being able to connect to the natural world as opposed to the normal mundane material realm that usually has us feeling safe and secure, which is our currency, which is our house, which is all of our resources, our own bodies. We have to actually connect into the higher octave in order to really find that security when the moon is meeting Uranus. And then also having that square to Saturn and also in opposition to Mars as well. So, okay. Thank you, Emily. It's good now. So let's keep going here. And the square to Saturn in particular is really going to test our ability to create happiness in very dark hours, right? Because we still have to live in this reality. We still have to be here, and we still have to interface with the physical objective reality that is Taurus, the fixed earth. And so our ability to not only have faith in the cycles of nature, without darkness there is no light, so we have to create our own happiness in those dark hours. That's, again, it's going to provide some tension here with our vision of the future and starting to act on it. It's just this momentary discomfort here of like, I still have to be here. I still have to be here in this moment. And what am I going to do about it? How am I going to create happiness and a sense of security emotionally? How am I going to adapt to this world of darkness? Well, I'm going to create my own happiness in this moment, knowing that it's not forever. And also in the face of the discomfort that's like, hey, you got to start acting as if we're already there. There's nothing wrong with either of these positions. It's the fact that when they come into cross purposes, it's really uncomfortable. So we have to just lean into it and see how we can make use of, how does creating our own inner happiness in dark hours actually fulfill our a very, very powerful and almost authoritarian focus, right? And responsibility. Saturn is a lot of karmic responsibility of acting on the vision of where we're going. These two things actually can really provide a growth moment if we see it that way, because these things don't have to be mutually exclusive. They just are at cross purposes, because one has to do with where we are right in the moment. But the good thing is that it's so close to Uranus during this square that it's really assisting us to be able to exist in both places at once, strangely enough. And then we have Venus come into a trine, right? Here's, let's go back a little bit. Here it is. Right after that, Venus comes into or the moon in Taurus comes into a trine. So this is before the moon even meets Uranus in the opposition to Mars. So this is all a lead up to this moment. So 11 and 11 here, that the moon is in this Earth trine to Venus. So while we are, and this is really, really important, because this is going to be something that comes up over and over throughout the eclipse cycle, through the season, right? These particular trines from the Earth element, especially with Uranus in Taurus, into all of the Capricorn energy eventually. So this is kind of an opportunity to align ourselves, or at least get a sense of what this may feel like later, while we are kind of familiarizing ourselves with what we could have, right? And what it means to have resources and comfort and security, and to kind of like window shop for all of those things. Like, oh, look what I could have based on everything around me. And this goes to the magician, by the way. Think about the magician in this moment based on this type of trine, because what it's going to be very much based on is the ability to explore unfamiliar realms and discover the laws of nature that are underlying all of these processes. This is a lot more grounded, a lot more patient, a lot more emotionally invested in the world around us, in terms of going into those unfamiliar realms and discovering the laws underlying things, as opposed to where Mars is, that is very obsessed with getting into the feeling of what is under the surface, because that's what's going to happen right after they have this trine, and then the moon comes into conjunction with Uranus, and then comes into that opposition with Mars. And so in that moment, we are hopefully able to align ourselves and adapt to where we're going, right? And the fact that we can't take the baggage with us in this moment. And this is how we find our sense of balance and our inner happiness. We have to figure out how to be here and then also be there, and have those things be linked together, but also acknowledge that they're not the same place, and we still have to be right here in the moment, but we also have to prepare ourselves for what's coming, basically. And all of these transits, especially with the moon in Taurus today, is really going to assist in this process. And that's really going to be the end of the transits for today in terms of the moon. So let's see here. Let's pop over to this one real quick. And then we can, and I know it's still, I hate how bright it is. I've been trying to work with the settings and I don't know exactly what to do. But so, like I said, Vesta is now in Sagittarius. We talked about the flame and the meaning behind it. This is something we just went over. Now, Mercury. Mercury is, and Lilith, right? Lilith is coming into conjunction with asteroid Ceres by tomorrow. In Gemini, this is when people get, this is very, again, there's correlation and a connection between eclipses and seismic activity. I really do think in the next 2 days we're going to see an uptick again. And there is more solar weather coming. We're in a coronal hole stream right now, which means that the speed of the solar wind is very high. The temperature, the density of the magnetosphere is it's pretty dense, and the pressure pushing back is also really high right now. So that's, in the next 2 days, we're going to see a big shift around. And when Lilith and Ceres are together, this is when Ceres really acts out in her grief and in her despair about losing her daughter to the underworld, right? The story of Persephone and Ceres as her mother. And the reason that Ceres goes... why we have seasonal death is because that's the time of year that her daughter, or Persephone, is in the underworld. And it's kind of like this, this kind of like, this is how I'm balancing it out. And that's very much where Ceres is right now in terms of her placement. So with Lilith meeting her tomorrow, and then Mercury in conjunction with Zubin Escamali, the fixed star. We'll pop over to that. We're going to see something shift pretty dramatically that's probably being activated right as we speak, with Mars and Uranus in opposition to each other. So here, come over here. So let's look at it. Mercury, right? Mercury is in conjunction with Zubin Escamali. We've talked about this fixed star many times. It's on the northern part of the scales of Libra, in the constellation of Libra. It's the part of the scale that holds, it's the arm, it's the northern arm. And it really does denote a very sharp and keen psychic sight, okay, with Zubin Escamali. And this is where Mercury is right now. And this is also about being able to this is about being able to channel transmission, channel wisdom, right? And wisdom that is not part of our conscious awareness. And so Mercury, it's really setting us up to be able to manifest very directly if we are creating the space and our field is strong enough to do that. And then we can still exist in this moment and be able to manifest and act out the vision of where we're going without actually leaving behind what is happening right here in the moment, but also not getting caught up in the baggage of it either. There is a lot of delicate maneuvering that seems to be happening right now, but with Mercury in particular in this position, especially because Mercury is going to come into a trine with Neptune tomorrow. And that, again, like I said, is about his conscience and refusing orders. And so as we have this strong conceptualization right now and this open channel in some ways right into our own mind and nervous system, into this wisdom that's based on like our faith, and it's based on the experience we've had so far in the realm of Scorpio and what we have discovered there, we can really tap into something deeper and have it come into our conscious awareness with Mercury. And it's from there tomorrow that the trine to Neptune is going to find a base and a foundational support with being able to then express ourselves or to communicate in some way, or even come into our awareness, like what it is that we want to align with, our own conscience or our own conscience or the authoritarian rule that is being imposed upon us. And with Mercury, there's our manifestation ability right there. And it's much more about aligning with that template. And it is the action of Mercury as the manifester and the power of manifestation that is really going to allow this to happen. And then we have Neptune in Pisces kind of providing a base over here, very strong water trine, right? Based in our feelings, very strong feelings that are supporting each other in terms of trusting and surrendering and feeling where we're going, and giving us the ability and the strength emotionally and spiritually to be able to say no. Basically, is to say no, to communicate no, to be able to conceptualize where we stand. That's really important. So today is a big, I would say, is starting the process of kind of, providing the tension that is going to really challenge us in terms of where we're going. And we'll then also, too, we'll find that we're going to more people are there's another wave, right? More people are going to start being able to see in their mind no, or express no. And also that voice no, or setting boundaries, or just being able to acknowledge it is going to then set, we can put that template into form for the future, because that's what Mercury is able to do, is able to manifest. But it starts in the moment with us being like, no, we're not going to do that. And the more that we do that, the more we're actually impacting where we're going, right, in this moment. So it's all about cause and effect, and it's all about fate as a function of cause and effect. And we have so much support, and it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing. The thorn here is the eclipse cycle, because there are things that aren't going to be made aware to us until much later. And so this is going to be a real exercise in trust, a real exercise in deepening our own awareness and our own, definitely deepening our own awareness, deepening our own connection to who we truly are, so that we can have this timestamp for what's coming down the road, and we already put it into place. We're like speaking it into existence now with Mercury. So I think that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you, of course. If you are interested in a reading or a consultation, or even just, energy work to support your process, which, it ends up being an intuitive reading just by virtue of connecting through the Reiki space. So that's part of it too. You'll get an intuitive reading even if you just book the Reiki session, because that's just it's part of the process. So, but if you're interested in any of these things, you can book through catalystenergies.net. I'm offering a reading sale for the eclipse season for you and your natal chart and your progress chart. 90-minute recorded reading, that's $99. And then I'm going to be offering a really steeply discounted consultation that would be a one-on-one Zoom afterwards that has a Reiki healing attunement, and then also would be a micro reading with the cards, and then a consultation about, well, okay, so this is what's happening. Now, what do I do with it? And that's a lot of the questions that I get from people, is like, this is all resonant, and it all makes sense to me, and it feels good, and it's filling in gaps. So now what? That's what the consultation is for. So that's going to be an offering as well. So, you can get on the mailing list. That's in the description box below by accessing the website, email, and then, of course, social media is there too. And I'll be posting the flyer for this sale as well. So, and if you really value this work and you want to support Catalyst Energies financially, you can go to Subscribestar in the description box below, and you can subscribe for $3 a month. And that allows you to support this work, so I can keep increasing the value, the production value of it, and also to be able to start offering exclusive content to those subscribers. So whole sign astrology every week, based on sign, and special reports that only be offered to subscribers. So something to consider now or for the future, depending on how things go for you. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I really, truly appreciate each and every one of you. We're doing great. Have a great day. Take very good care of yourselves. You don't have to jump out of the crow's nest just yet. Just start to get an idea of where you're headed, so you know where to go when it's time to actually jump. That's really important to consider. So I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.